My name is Jeff Chandler, and I'm with the Simplify Science Select Curriculum Development Team. And I'm here to help you navigate the Exavolt and the system that we use for distributing the curriculum. The first thing that you're going to see when you log into the sample folder is that you'll see only one unit is present. Now, generally, what we have is we have between 2 and 3 units that are distributed on a per 6 weeks basis. So, usually, instead of seeing only unit 2 here, for the first 6 weeks, you would see a unit 1 and a unit 2. Okay, on the second 6 weeks, we would deliver that content approximately 2 weeks before the beginning of the second 6 weeks, and that would include content or units 3 and 4 depending on the subject area. Sometimes it's 3, 4, and 5 depending on the subject area. So the first thing that we want to do is whenever you click on this folder, you have a couple of options. You could click right here and you could download the entire folder right away. If you do, it may take a while because there are several documents and lots of large files in here. So the first thing we want to do is explore the file itself. So we're going to click on it. And when you click on it, the first thing that you will see is that all the folders are at the top. This is a product of the Exavolt distribution system that we use. So instead of lining them up by all the numbers, which is what we would like it to do as far as lining them up in a traditional folder, you have to go ahead and scroll down, and we're going to go by numbers. So the first thing that you see is you see these 0 documents. These 0 documents represent the teaching documents that you'll want to look at before you implement the Simplify Science curriculum. So we're going to get into these a little bit more later, but this 0A document is an objective document. It's an overview of the entire unit. It's going to tell you the TEKS, ELPs, all the curricular material that you're going to be addressing on certain days, how many days it's going to take, and those sorts of things. This 0B document is a teacher preparation document, and what that is it's very specific instructions as far as how to set up a lab, what equipment you're going to need, how much of each equipment you're going to need, questions that you can use to draw answers out of students, guiding questions, those sorts of things. The 0C is designed to be all the same information in a lesson plan format. It'll include the TEKS, the ELPs, the objectives, the learning objectives, the academic vocabulary that you're interested in, the technology and materials you may be using. The lesson plans is generally designed for an administrator to help you meet the expectations of your local administration. Next, you have the warm-ups, and what we do is we do include warm-ups for each day that you're going to be in this particular unit. And the first document, the 0D, is going to be the warm-up PowerPoint, so that can be up whenever you begin the class. Next, we have the warm-ups, and the warm-ups you see, you have a PowerPoint to begin with, and those are questions designed to get students interested in the subject for that particular day, or give examples of questions in preparation for a quiz or some sort of practice problem. In addition to the warm-ups for the PowerPoint, you can have that on whenever the students walk into class. We also give a student warm-up sheet, which gives the students a place to answer the warm-up questions, and actually provides the warm-up questions on a daily basis. In case a student is absent, they can still participate in the warm-up. Maybe not the discussion associated with the warm-up, but with the warm-up itself. Okay, next we have our engage activity, and we will begin all units with an engage activity, something to kind of address prior knowledge that students have and then kind of extend that into what you're going to be learning in this particular unit. Okay, now if you were to look at just the documents, you'll see it skips from 1 to 7. Now the reason why is all the documents between 1 and 7 actually go back up into these folders. Now each one of these lesson cycles has a specific learning objective. So for example, in this particular learning objective, we're introducing students to the concept of average velocity, displacement, time, and the relationship between them. Okay, so when I click on this particular folder, you're going to see that there's going to be a bunch of documents included in this lesson cycle. So this is kind of the crux of what Simplify Science is. This is in our lesson cycles. So what you'll see is that we begin every lesson cycle with an investigation. The investigations that you'll see, we'll go over them in more detail a little bit later, but the investigations that you see include background information, some pre-lab questions for students to do, and then they provide the procedure for students to follow. In addition to that, we provide a student data sheet, and the student data sheet has been really helpful in terms of helping students maintain their data instead of in a lab notebook, and it also provides a space for them to answer the analysis questions. Now on the student data sheet, the analysis questions are present. So if you have students that are ahead and finish their experiment early, they're more than welcome to begin the analysis questions. But in addition, we actually provide an analysis PowerPoint as well. And the analysis PowerPoint is to help guide the students through the analysis questions and help make the links that are going to occur in the lecture presentation that's going to come up after this. So the analysis questions give hints, they kind of give pictures to help students make that connection. Next, you see a PowerPoint presentation, 2D, and you see we switch from an Explore to an Explain. And at this point, you're going to be explaining the information that they got in the lab and applying it to other situations. So this is going to be notes, it's going to be academic vocabulary, it's going to be examples. This PowerPoint right here actually has a voiceover, and it's been lectured and videoed, very similar to this video. And you can actually find the link to this particular video in our original 0B teacher preparation document. That's where all the links are to all those videos. So if you want to post them on your website, you're more than welcome to. If students are absent, if you're going to be absent, if you want to flip the classroom, if for whatever reason, you're more than welcome to use those videos. Okay, so if we continue on with our explanation of the structure, the next thing you will see is you'll see student notes, and these are fill-in-the-blank notes that are based on the PowerPoints. Okay, and then you see a key. If for some reason you would like to grade those, you can check the key, or if you have a student that has a 504 accommodation where they're supposed to get notes from you, you're more than welcome to print out the key as well. Okay, then we have what we call our interactive practice activity, and the interactive practice activity can actually be used multiple ways. It's practice problems that are designed in 3 levels. You tend to see 3 or 4 levels depending on the course. You see things like fundamental questions, which are your lowest level questions. You see developing level questions where the student is starting to understand at the level that you would expect. You have proficient level questions, which we consider to be on par at the level that they're supposed to be, and then we have mastery level questions, which are above the standard level that you would expect for a student in this particular course. Okay, we provide not only the interactive practice, we provide the interactive practice key, which is the solutions to all these questions. You can use it in small group instruction. You can use it as basically a lecture if you flip a classroom. You can use it as homework if that's how you would like to use it. In addition to this, though, we provide in the 0B document specific questions that are meant to guide the students as they work through this. So if you have a student who's struggling, you can say, okay, well, what do you know about this? What do you know about this? And they're meant to help students get to the answer. There's also extension questions that are based on that. Then finally, we conclude every lesson cycle with a quiz, and the quizzes you'll see have a very specific structure as well that we're going to go ahead and get to. So each one of these folders contains a lesson cycle that you would see: a lab, notes, the interactive practice, a quiz, and occasionally you'll see an elaborate activity like this one has an elaborate, which is another lab activity meant to reinforce the learning in this particular lesson cycle. So now what we're going to do is we're going to switch to a different view, and we're going to go ahead and examine each one of these documents in a little bit more detail. Now what I've done is I've downloaded all the files that we talked about on Exavolt. Now what I can do is I can show you some of the more detailed instructions as far as each individual document. So the first thing that you'll see is our objectives document. In our objectives document, right here, you see the approximate unit length, and it's going to vary depending on what you do, the content teaks, the process teaks that are associated with it, as well as a day-by-day calendar. Now, if you notice, some of these things say 3 to 5 days because that's going to depend on your individual class. So as you go through this, you'll see what the goal is, and each day has an objective. So the objective for the second day is to review graph procedures, including calculating the slope while expanding knowledge of displacement, time, and velocity. That's the learning objective for that particular day, and it's addressing Physics 4A and 4B. Okay, in addition to that, you can say what process teaks are associated with that. So this is kind of an overall what you're going to be doing for the lesson. So now what we have is we have the very specific teacher preparation directions. Now these documents tend to be fairly long, and what they're doing is they're giving you very specific instructions on what you're going to need. So for example, a ramp, a ball, a meter stick, stopwatches, and surfaces with a low coefficient of friction. So that's the materials that you're going to need in order to do the lab. It gives you instructional guidance on how to set up and things to be careful for whenever you are introducing the lab. It also goes through the instructional notes. It gives you the direct links to the videos that we discussed earlier. And then when you get to the interactive practice, you see this is the first question on the interactive practice, and it gives you recall questions, guiding questions, and application questions associated with this. So how can you help the students start to answer the question? How can you guide them to the correct answer? And how can you get them to apply it to a different situation? So this instructional document is very long because it gives you a lot of information about how to implement the unit in its entirety. Okay, so now we've seen or we can look at the warm-ups if you want, but we're probably interested in the lesson cycle more than anything. So the first thing we want to do is we want to look at the lab cycle that we did. And so the first thing that you get is you get instructional documents right here. So our labs are designed to be easy for the students to interpret, to obtain data, because we believe that the emphasis of the lab should be on analyzing the data from the lab and making it connect to the learning that they're doing in other parts of the class. So we don't have long background sections. We say who, what, how, and why, and then we go to key terms. And we want to tell students, hey, these terms are really important. And then as we go through, we give them the investigation question, we help them develop a hypothesis, we guide them to that hypothesis based on previous knowledge. We will ask them occasional pre-lab questions just to help them get started. And then you have your procedure right here. So if you look, the investigation document actually ends with the procedure. So if you like to use laboratory notebooks, you are more than welcome to use just this document. But we also include this document right here, which is our student data sheet. And the student data sheet provides them with tables for the data. It provides them with the analysis questions that they can use. It provides them with structured templates for the graph, and it walks them through the analysis questions. So this right here is something that you probably would not include if you're using lab notebooks. In addition to this, we provide the analysis documents as well. And the analysis documents are structured very similar to our note PowerPoints, and they go through the questions one by one. And so you see convert the measurements for position and time into appropriate SI units if necessary. And then you see examples of, oh, time should be in seconds. Displacement is in centimeters, so that's a problem, and it gives the dimensional analysis structure of how to go from centimeters to meters. So you could put this up here, or if you have students that are accelerated, they can work on these questions independently of this PowerPoint. Okay, this is something that you could also provide for struggling students or students that need additional support. Okay, so that tends to be our lab cycle. And then let's go through our note cycle. Let's open these up. Okay, so the next thing you see is we have our student notes, and these are blank. They have fill in the blanks, so students are required to write the learning goals or the learning objectives. They're required to fill in the blanks as they go through these. They're provided examples, and the examples are labeled based on proficient, developing, mastery, and fundamental. So students have an idea of what level they're at based on their understanding as they go through the notes. So you see that the answers to the questions are given as long as some structured guidance of what we did in order to get those answers. So those are provided with the corresponding PowerPoint, which is what you see here. And you see these PowerPoints, and this is once again what was filmed and addressed in the 0B document. Okay, next you would see the interactive practice. And the interactive practice can be thought of as a worksheet, but because of the way it's structured, we would highly encourage you to use it in small group instruction, because you can have certain students work on the developing level questions that are struggling students, while at the same time you can have other students working on proficient, and your students that are accelerated could be working on the mastery level questions, and then they could work together to kind of share the information they know. It allows everybody a chance to be successful. We provide the keys for these documents as well, so you can see what the answers are and kind of how they were obtained. And then finally, we conclude every lesson cycle with a quiz. Now, our quiz structure is based on, again, on the idea of developing proficient and mastery, as well as fundamental. The fundamental questions are the most basic questions. So things like, what are the standard units? So this is just, were they paying attention as we went through this material? The developing level questions is they're starting to understand the concepts that we're interested in. Proficient tends to be on level questions, like this one, for example, is having a student calculate the time using a velocity equals displacement over time formula. And then finally, you have a mastery level question, which is something that would be considered to be above and beyond this particular level, but is going to be challenging. Now, we actually provide a grading structure right here that says, if you get the mastery level question right, you get 100. If you get the proficient level question right, you get a 90. If you get the developing level question right, you get a 70, and so on and so on and so on. So that's the structure that we have as written. But like all our documents, everything in here is 100% editable. You'll see that all of them are in Word format or PowerPoint format. They're not locked. They're not in PDF format. You are free to edit these documents to serve the needs of your particular students. If you have any questions at any point on any of the curricular materials, please feel free to contact the sales team as outlined in your email.